I'm coming out, so you'd better get this frame rate started.
Is that how you're doing it? Is that the start?
Ordering you to start the frame rate. I don't understand.
Oh,
what the
you're
holdup
ordering
is.
me. I see how it is. Yes, my liege.
When I sing it, it's an order. Do you not know that?
No, I didn't know that that's the rules of your
Abe,
kingdom.
you gotta drive me to the airport, my friend. See, now you're fucked. It's a done deal.
I'm really fucked. It's a done deal. I gotta get up at 4 a.m. just to get your
4 a.m. I'm gonna breathe on your mouth.
Why are you gonna breathe on? Is that
I sang it. I regret singing it, but it's locked in now.
Right. You do what you want, man.
I always do.
You do what you want.
I sometimes do what I want. How about you,
this
man?
meandering opening.
How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I can't complain. It's hot. It's hot.
It is hot. I'm doing
and I don't have an AC at all. So.
Oh, I'm sorry. I can say this honestly. I'm doing better now that I watched this movie. I really, really liked it.
Really?
Yeah, really. Yes.
This is going to be engaging.
House
I like
of.
this.
Yeah, so let's get into it.
I want to shout out before
please.
we do that this is yet another Pick the Flick. And this one is Zach Shorts. Oh, baby.
Oh, Zachy.
Oh, Zachy.
Another Zach attack.
Oh, Zachy. And he asked us that we give a little shout out to Vera, who may be listening to this, because Vera is a friend of Zach's who introduced him to this film. And then he introduced this film to us because I said we hadn't seen it. And so thank you, Vera.
Hi, Vera. And indeed, hi, Vera, if that's how you pronounce it. Either way.
I believe he said it's not Vera because I haven't seen the finale of Mr. Robot, but the way he said he's like, it's like in Mr. Robot, not like Jane's gun in Firefly. And I remember that was Vera.
Okay.
So I may be wrong,
Perfect.
but I'm pretty sure that it's Vera.
Thank you, Vera. Now it's an order.
She will verify, I assume.
Ha-ha. This whole episode's been verified in a way. And indeed, it is an episode of, you see how I'm reversing the order?
Yep.
Frame Rate, the show where we rate frames. I'm your host, Michael Swaim.
And I'm your other host, Abe Epperson.
That's right. And we are indeed talking about The House of Yes, which I bet a lot of people haven't heard of, but I'm super grateful Zach brought it to my attention. I had not seen this movie or indeed heard of it. And it stars Parker Posey. Are you kidding me, dude? Did you not think that?
Oh, whenever you look at Parker Posey? Is that what you're saying?
I had not made the connection before this movie, but I could just not stop thinking of Maggie. Yeah.
That's funny. I did not make that connection.
I could see her playing this role.
She bears a striking resemblance to Liv Tyler to me.
To Liv Tyler, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's not.
This is not the Maggie cast.
Let's not spend too much more time deciding who Maggie looks like. But yeah. So can I give a quick recap, just so?
Please do,
because this is a deep cut. But I gotta say, it's one of my favorite deep cuts. Like, of the stuff that people have patronized us at the Pick the Flick tier, which we're very grateful for. It keeps the lights on, and thrown some movies at us that we didn't necessarily plan to cover on our own. This is one of my favorites. This is an unexpected gem for me.
Surprises,
yeah,
all around.
It is a pitch black comedy, a brisk hour and 25 minutes. And written very much in the style of a play, which is probably one of the reasons I like it. And it, as a lot of well-made plays are, it is about family drama, cranked up to 11. It reminded me of a favorite dark movie of mine, Festin, which Abe showed me back in college. You made me aware of that movie, Celebration. And it felt like, well, I'll get into unpacking. But to recap, the essentials of the plot are pretty straightforward. There's a crazy family. You got your mom, who is a crazy, acidic, catty, super elite, like everything she says is cutting and has immense subtext. And she is basically an enabler to Parker Posey, who plays does she have a name other than Jackie O? I guess her name is Jackie O.
I think Jackie
is the character's name.
I think she does have another name, but I forget
if they divulged her real name, but
I don't think they do.
Ever since a fateful day, which was the day of the Kennedy assassination, or no, it was a party following it because she was dressed in a mocking way about the Kennedy assassination. It all gets mixed up in her head because she's crazy, you guys. That's the point. And she is obsessed with her brother, Marty, and her twin brother in a sexual way, and she's also obsessed with the Kennedys. They live near the Kennedys. They're a wealthy family, and she thinks of herself as Jackie O. So she has this weird play that she does, psychosexual play she did with her brother once, where she pretends to shoot him and then pretends to be Jackie and like holds his as he pretends to die, and then they have sex. And they did that in the past. Now he's back for Thanksgiving, and he brought his fiance, Leslie, and he wants a normal life, right? He wants to forget all this craziness and not have this happen again. But that's arguable, because why'd he bring her here in the first place, which is a question they raise.
The whole time when he acts alone with, Parker Posey, Marty is basically, he's way leaning into it. It's so bizarre. So I wanted to talk about that.
He kind of wants his cake and eat it too. Like, he brings this fiance home to shove in their faces, I'm normal, I'm not insane, I've broken away from our weird family. And at the same time, as the second she's out of the room, he's like, yeah, I'll play your weird sex game with you, sis. So at the same time, the last character rounding out the cast, Freddie Prince Jr. in the weirdest role I've ever seen him in, as this like childlike proto-rapist. The son who he acts like Forrest Gump almost, but if Forrest Gump was aggressively always just asking you, could we have sex now? Is that okay? Can I have sex with you now? But then also acting like he's innocent. Like, I don't know anything. I'm dumb. I'm just like childlike. Could we have sex now? I'm just
going to ask questions all the time.
Yeah. Fucking weird, dude.
Fucking weird.
He somehow gets Leslie to have sex with him. While the brother's having sex with the sister, they come downstairs. There's a messy confrontation, and it ends with Parker Posey saying, I will let you leave if you reenact the thing with me one more time. And he says, okay, I'll do it. But it's pretty clear that he knows that she's about to really shoot him in the head this time. And she does. That's the end of the movie.
Yep, that's you nailed it.
House of Yes. To start us out with like the juicy bits, why do you think it's called the House of Yes? I figured we could jump over that hurdle quickly and then get to the real unpacking.
I feel like there's a double meaning that I'm not aware of. Like, maybe Jackie O at one point was famously uttered the House of Yes or something like that. So I don't know if there's another meaning, but the House of Yes to me, if I'm just going to take it literally and examine it with this film, to me means that like there is the mother and I guess the father who ran away or died.
I'm pretty confident he ran away, and she thinks he died.
Yeah, she thinks he died. Yeah, that's what that makes sense to me. Is that they're, like you said, they're kind of an enabler, and their way in which the parents were enablers for both the children and for Freddie Prince Jr., both the twins and Freddie Prince, who's known as Anthony. That's his name. And I think that what's going on there is that it's actually their lack of the ability to say no, which is weird, because they just weren't parents. In fact, early up top, there's a whole conversation about like kind of what it is to be a mother, and they always kind of like almost like a game, like the games that the back and forth tete-a-tete like language battles that each of the families do with each other. They're each kind of unique,
and they're all in the classic way that a play is written.
Yeah,
the drama is all the fact that no one ever says what they mean. Everything is subtext.
Do you know what the name for that is? Because it sounds like, because I really wish I had a name for that.
I think it's called a well-made play, which doesn't mean a good play.
No.
It's a genre of play called the well-made play. And it means highly traditional play. And has all the hallmarks.
Kind of Marx Brothers-y.
I'd call the dialogue crackling. I think it crackles.
Like Sure Thing. Did you ever read Sure Thing?
Yes.
Or
True West. Yeah.
Ding. Yeah, it's that kind of stuff.
And heightened language, like the mother talks like, well, you needn't snip at me. I swear, a person asks a civilized question and a person gets snipped at. It can be a slow death to die of snipping at you all day long.
Yeah.
Stop saying snip.
Incessant with the snipping. Yeah, it's just like, all right, well, you took that out for a stroll.
And yet the subtext in every, like you mentioned, the tete-a-tete and the battle aspect, this is built in such a way that in almost every scene, the subtext is fuck you. Everyone is just saying, I destroy you, fuck you.
That's why I assume that the House of Yes is a play on something. Also, House of Yes is typically, like, it's a positivity or like a health spa kind of concepts, like it's always done with like House of Yes, the power of yes,
and yet it's what if you say yes? Because one of the resonant lines I really liked was, I don't think you're crazy, I think you're just spoiled. Right. So it's like, these, and I think we should get into how it's certainly not the most humane depiction of mental illness, like real mental illness, but
no, it's not.
But it is a valid statement about mental illness that if someone has tendencies to harm themselves or others, and all you do is enable them, it gets worse. That's basically the shape of the thing.
That's true.
Yeah,
that's true.
House of Yes.
Is that what you think as well, what I spelled out, or do you have a different take on it?
I think it's that Jackie has only been told yes, and in this case, it's showing how the power of positive thinking is not necessarily always a good thing. And I also,
or rather, never been told no is another way of saying that. Yeah.
And I think there's the double entendre with coming and moaning. Yeah.
Oh, the House of
baby, because only because they love. Like another payoff line was, Leslie says, I didn't even want to come here. And he goes, but you did come, meaning you fucked my brother. So the writer, I don't like that line. It's way too on the nose, but come on the nose. But the writer is very aware of words that sound sexual. So I have to imagine House of Yes is also just hinting at the sexual aspect. And that was the thing that so like one of my main takeaways was Wes Anderson loves this movie, I think.
Really? From from like what the play is about.
I don't mean the stylistic choices. I mean I've only
dysfunction as a
the family is dysfunctional in a twee way, and yet the core is truly dark. It's really fucked up.
It's very Royal Tenenbaums.
It feels very proto Tenenbaums to me.
Yeah.
And not
with Gwyneth Paltrow and that relationship, like and Luke Wilson's relationship, like it's very like pseudo-sexual, but also like whimsical and it's whimsical in like a brother-sister way because they don't know what they're doing. They're childlike. So it's like childlike brother and sister as opposed to adult brother and sister, and also mixing the two and how that's kind of weird. Yeah.
And yet they're the only two incest stories I can think of where it's played for both at the same time, where it's, like in Gladiator, when Commodus is interested in incest, that's a big red flag. He may as well be killing his own henchman or kicking a puppy. You're like, that guy's bad. In this and in Royal Tenenbaums, it actually goes so far as to make you feel weird, like to make you go, there's something innocent and beautiful about their love, but then constantly remind you, but it's bad though, but it's incest. But it's weird how his love can kind of heal her for brief moments, but it's weird and bad.
It's weird. Yeah. It's all weird. But it's, there's a moment where he asks the question to Leslie, who's played by Tori Spelling. And she's the the woman that the fiance that he brings, where after it's all kind of gone horrible, and she's kind of found out you fuck your sister, and he's like, well, you fucked my brother, because this all happens, and that's inexplicable
Also,
to me. I don't understand Leslie's character.
Leslie really gets the shaft, and I don't mean like horrible things happen to her, which is true, but I also mean she is by far the least. Her character is insensible. Like, the things she does don't hold together or make coherent sense.
She is even more childlike than Freddie Prince Jr., you know?
And I feel like
bizarre.
it feels like the playwright or screenwriter,
It's like,
figured out all the plot points and then just made Leslie contort to fit around the plot points. Because Leslie...
this was a play. This was a play before Mark Waters wrote it. He wrote the screenplay and directed it, and by the way, he's famous for also directing like Mean Girls and a few other of this era. Mm-hmm. But it's based on The House of Yes by Wendy McLeod.
There you go. You can totally tell it's a play.
Theater, she's a playwright. But anyway, yeah, it is. He at one point, Marty says and asks the question: Is masturbation, like, is that something that is considered like a betrayal? Because how can you had sex with my brother, but I had sex with myself. And I'm like, you're really stretching for that one,
I mean, as plays,
'cause they're twins,
as plays tend to be dialogue focused, there's just some good dialogue in this movie and some bad, but I did it's like fucking a mirror. That sounds painful.
Yeah.
And I don't think you were even supposed to buy for a second. He's just reaching for an excuse, right?
I think so. I think this is very, strangely enough, just like because it's got Freddie Prince Jr. in it, it's surprisingly like Cruel Intentions.
Sure.
In that it's like the upper class and like playing with the lower class, like cat and mouse games where it's like, yeah, we're all fucked up. Or like Succession. Have you seen HBO's Succession?
They're like, the mom is firmly of the opinion of, we're all fucked up, but we're rich, so we're still better than you.
Mm-hmm. Like they look down on her, and it's two things. One, it clearly Marty went and sought out a woman that works in like a blue collar job. Like they keep making fun of her because she works at a Donut King. Mm-hmm. And they're like, so does that make her the donut queen? And like they make fun of like, she smells like powdered sugar and stuff like that. I think that's one thing, is that he's doing that, and we don't learn that until about halfway through the movie. But also it's just like most of the family is like, fuck this donut person, which is just really... Like, what?
Well, it also, it reminded me also of a proto Knives Out or a proto You're Next.
Yeah, exactly.
Because one of, I think, the bravest decisions, especially for a film from that long ago, was Marty is your classic everyman in a play, in a standard play. He would be, like Harold Pinter has a ton of plays like this. Mm-hmm. The standard everyman brings his fiance home for Thanksgiving, and his family is deeply fucked up, and it fucks everything up. But he's always just a cipher who's there to observe the fuckedness. I thought it was really interesting, and it woke me up. You know what I mean? Like, as someone who just is so used to the tropes playing out as they always play out 90% of the time, for Marty to be a bad guy, like, Marty becomes part of the ensemble of the crazy family. He is not really separate from them. He's not really a protagonist who's coming in from the outside like you thought. He is very quickly ready to sink back into his own mental issues, do harm to others, do harm to himself, and just go for it. And I did not see that coming. It kept me on the edge of my seat. It reminded me of, did you ever see The Ref? Yeah, with what's his name, Dennis Leary and Kevin Spacey, I think.
I can't remember.
Who he takes hostage, but it felt like that level of ambition, where this movie is not trying to be No Country for Old Men, but it's got it's like, I have one or two things to say, I'll show you a good time. And surprisingly to me, those things were very affecting. I felt a lot of dread and tension, I think in part because Parker Posey's performance is excellent. I just felt like I felt when I watched Festin or Funny Games, and that's quite an accomplishment for such a humble film, I think.
Yeah, I mean...
Okay, yeah, let's unpack why you didn't like it as much. Because it's not that you disliked it, but I've been hearing in your voice that you go, "Oh, you liked it that much? Oh, what's that about?"
I mean, there's stuff to admire, and I'm glad you started because you extrapolated a good tempered version of what we watched, but I just don't. It just doesn't work on me. The good old play or whatever you called it, like that element doesn't really work on me. I don't like that. I think we were talking about it on Director Piece the other day. Once again, like the Charlie Kaufmans and the Wes Andersons don't work on me. I don't like it when it's like. I do admire the tightly written language, and I do think that there is cleverness in it. But I think that it's so overwrought and unlike how people actually speak that it pushes me away. I also don't like stories about dysfunction in the family. I don't know why that is. Call a psychologist. But
do you dislike them like they bug you, or dislike them like they bore you?
I have an uncomfortable viewing experience with them.
Interesting.
And I also think that, and that's my cross to bear, man. But also, I think that, because like the incest doesn't bother me. Like these are all good things to tackle, but it's like the game
you gotta
of the language.
Tackle incest. You gotta.
You gotta. It's the games of the language and the screenplay that really bothers me. I don't like Sure Thing. I kind of think that there's people who do it really well. I think that there's things like even Abbott and Costello, or as I mentioned, the Marx Brothers
kill, yeah.
Oh, it kills. Why? Because it's funny and it's clever in a way that maybe it's because it's always played for comedy. It's like trying to stretch for like realism in some sense, and I'm like, well, I've never met anyone like that at all, and if I ever did, I'd be like, no thanks, and that is just how I don't know, that's what it comes down to. So I'm starting by basically saying, yeah, it's probably my own specific thing, but I do think that this movie is broken in several ways, like just as structurally. And the things that the director did that made me that bothered me, that I was like, that is not good structure.
We identified that Leslie allows herself to be slowly, essentially date raped for no reason. But what else?
Yeah.
What are the other ones?
I'll start with something a little bit small, like small devices of writing that are nonsensical and arbitrary, even if it's done because the characters are trying to be portrayed as such, still peeve me. Tori Spelling has to go downstairs at one point because she just heard that her fiance fucks his sister. Now her heel is broken and Freddie Prince is in the room. In order to keep her from witnessing the twins together downstairs, says, quote, "I can use super glue to fix it," which in turn basically makes a back and forth for a few lines about how long it takes for super glue to fix something and if it's a viable solution for the fucking shoe. Mm-hmm. She doesn't need shoes. Why is the conversation here? Why are we watching?
Right. And ultimately she does go, forget it. You're just trying to stall me, and it doesn't matter. Yeah.
And I think that is a case of a small beat having that problem. I also think that the plant and payoff done by the director all across the movie is pretty fucked up. Let's look at the gun. I thought the gun plant payoff was weird. I thought that, obviously, I think that movie should be one particular way, so feel free to disagree with me, everyone. I just thought, I thought she actually shot him the first time. I think that was what they were doing, because they used the lightning strikes and obscuring details, like, did he get shot? Like a shot of him shot intentionally the first time when she, quote unquote, fires the gun, even though it doesn't have any bullets. Yeah, when it was fine. To make you think that it could have not been that way, right? So they like kind of hold that reveal a little bit, because when we find that Marty's asleep with Jackie, he takes a while to awake the next morning. So they really play with you there. Then when they don't do any plant and payoff within that next 10 minutes, because the gun is just like whisked away by mom when she sees it. She's like, nope, the gun, that's gotta go. Literally 10 minutes later, Jackie has the gun again. And I guess we assume it's full of bullets now because it cuts out as the gun fires. And then they seal the deal 3 seconds later in narration when she hints at burying Marty's body.
And Leslie scream. The final image is Leslie screaming, running out of the house. So you assume she shot him this time.
Right. So even though I get the information, the plant and payoff system of this, in other words, playing with my heartstrings and be like, did she shoot? Did she not? Much like they did the first time, was the same game the second time.
I see.
They didn't update it. They didn't do anything. There wasn't any actually established way in which I could infer the details. They just did 2 shock things and then explained to me after. And that is just like, well, that's not showing.
Man, that's true. And that's coming from such a directorial standpoint. I'm just imagining how effective it would be as a play. Because if you developed the idea that these twins reenact the Kennedy assassination, and then you have her do it, and it live in front of you, you're not sure if they're acting like he was really shot or acting like it's a blank and he's just acting. And there's a long silence where he's slumped over, and then his head comes up and he's like, I was just acting. That's very impactful as a live experience, but it loses a lot on film. The
first time.
Yeah.
It also loses,
but there's that holdover effect. Like they play a full length piano medley, and on film, I would argue it's boring. It hurts the pacing, and it does not add.
Yeah, it does a little bit.
If you saw the actors actually play piano live in front of you, it would be a show in and of itself, right? You'd be at a play, and you'd be like, bonus,
true,
good piano playing is happening. Also,
now I got people in front of me doing piano. Yeah. Absolutely. I think that's fine. I think that is...
But you're right that
that's not why I hate
the person
it.
Adapting
that's not what I hate that trope.
The person adapting the thing can fix those problems. It wasn't it was clumsily adapted to film. That's true.
That's my argument. So that's kind of... So it's this 2 things coming at me. One, I can't help but look at things as a director, and it's not that well directed. 2, it's not my... It's not my cup of tea in terms of like what I prefer to watch and listen to and what I think makes a compelling movie. I just don't care for... I didn't think that the dialogue was good enough to warrant that highfalutin language and that kind of like putting it on almost like language as an abstraction level conversations. I know it's all in character. I know it's like a way in which we portray the aristocracy. It works on me on something like Succession, but even Succession, I'm like, the cool thing about like Succession is that they actually portray them as like real people with real problems. So there's a little bit of down to earthness or being taken down a peg that goes along with it, that I guess that is enough, because then that to me that's the engine of like, yeah, fuck these people. So when I get to witness it, I'm like, yeah, I got what I wanted out of this TV show. Out of this, I'm like, I understand that it's different because it's a movie and it's not a TV show, so I don't need a reproducible like event to occur. But it is really something that I'm just like, well, I want to enjoy the walls of the house. I want to look up and go, oh, that's a good color. That's good. This is a nice place to be. So when I think...
Sorry. No. Finish. Go on.
No, I'm just like taking it home. Just like, so when I think of a good film, I just don't think of the stuff that this film is doing.
You took it home so hard, bro. Well, I was going to ask, because recently on what we consider our sister network, Gamefully Unemployed, Jason Pargin, a.k.a. David Wong, did a spiel that I thought was very insightful, as he's wont to be, about how, gosh, not Poe's Oscar Isaac. There's Poe, there's Rey, and who's the third Star Wars? Finn. John Boyega.
Finn. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so he was saying Finn grew up as a stormtrooper, which is essentially a death cult whose culture was originally designed by clones of Jango Fett, and now there's like the legacy of that culture is now what you are. You're not a clone, but you were raised in essentially this Nazi death cult. And then he escapes, and he's immediately cracking wise in very vernacular language, like the rebels do, like anyone would in 2020, just talking, just regular talking. You know, he knows what birthdays are. He has all the normal zeitgeist references.
He's been talking with his clone buddies this way. He must have, you know?
Yeah, and then like it's almost as if he thought that was a major weakness, that it's almost as if the character's backstory never comes to bear. It doesn't matter. It doesn't affect him or the way he acts or talks. So my question is, isn't that the flip side of the... Like, his argument would almost be Finn should have talked weirder. He should have talked more like a stormtrooper. He should have drawn attention to his manner of speech by being weird and odd. I wonder if there's a good rule of thumb for when to do that and when not to do it. Because at a peek behind the curtain, Abe and I are currently co-writing a spec script, as we are at any given time. But this one is a period piece, and we've had to tackle that. And it's such an interesting process for each project where you're like, this takes place in, let's say, Renaissance times, but I'm making it in 2020. Do they talk like 2020 people? Do they talk exactly like people actually talked in Renaissance times, which is near indecipherable to the modern ear? Or do they, where in the middle do you land? How do you decide something like that when it comes to a creative project? What are your words of wisdom around that? Like, when should people talk like them, like abstract, you know?
I think that my barometer for that, and I know because I know you're kind of looking for an answer that is like, well, what's the magic? What's the kind of, what's the criterion that allows us to know, like, from an approach of a screenwriter, looking at the content, when are they acceptable scenarios based off of
what does taking the slider all the way to the fancy side, what impact does that have on the mind versus taking it all the way to the vernacular side? What are the tools?
What grouping of elements allow me to go, this is a good choice? And I'd say that there's no that. But I would say that my criterion would be like a little bit more abstract, but twofold. And it's basically comes down to two things. It comes down to the quality of the writing. If it's good writing, then you could probably sell anything, because you can just make, you know, like if it's really like think of Fear and Loathing, right? Like the whole thing is his speech patterns and the way in which they interpret the world, and the fact that it's voiceover with narration. It now literally formalistically is all entirely his speech. It's his stream of consciousness. So that's my other criterion, which is the writing so good that it is justifiably loud? And what I mean by that is, it like, does it carry over the movie as like almost every scene, you know? Well, if it's that good, that's your movie. So
like, congratulations, you are Mark Twain or Hunter S. Thompson. You are someone who has a very unique way of writing.
You can fucking hold it up. Yeah. You can hold it up. You know, you got it. I think that if you're going to introduce a character who's very out there. I was just talking to Dave, and they just, again, to bring up Gamefully Employed because you remind me of him, they did a Tron Legacy one, and like, why is it that Michael Sheen just feels perfect in Tron Legacy? And I think it's because everyone is so emphatically one thing, and then he comes in and he's like fucking Prince. And he just kills everything. And it's just like, you didn't know at that time that what you were missing from Tron Legacy was Michael Sheen as Prince. But you got it and you loved it. And the reason why is because the screenwriter was like, yeah, I think they're going to like this. And they were right. So like, no, there is no criterion. Is it pleasant? And I think the loudness and the quality are good variables, because it's like sometimes you just don't want it. Why? Because it just doesn't feel right. Like it's like, when do you decide, what criterion do you use when you go like, in my comedy, when do I not tell a joke? Right?
Well, yeah, it's more like,
it's never
it's never about trying to find the right answer. It's about, because there can't be a right answer. It's about finding out, what does this box do? What does this lever do? So I'm just saying, like, as a writer, the way I try to think about it is, if I do make the dialogue continuously more and more abstract, what effect does it have on the piece and how it will be imbibed? Like, does it make you more likely to be cerebral over emotional? Does it make you more like, I try to figure out what does the bag of tricks, what are the side effects of this pill being whatever.
Yeah, you're right. I'm probably being a little harsh on you for saying, you're looking for this. It's true. You're just kind of asking about the box.
But what
we talk about all the time.
What does it do? That's why I think there's something true about the cerebral emotional thing. Or I find that when language is extremely heightened, I'm invited to not, for obvious reasons, not imagine myself as that person, not take it realistically as a work of empathy, but to think of it as an architectural work of writing. And that makes sense that it's not up your alley, but it totally is mine, because I agree with you that I experience this as a script. It screams, I've been assembled. No one talks like this. These are words in sequence. But I'm a writer, so I get off on it like, that one was clever. I see what you did there. I like that little bit of writing. And then I agree, there were some misses, but crackling. I keep going back to the word crackling.
See,
I'm going to sell this movie, you guys. It's going to be a hit retroactively.
To me, I'd much rather something like, obviously, like The Wire or something where it's like... well,
that crackles too. Jeez, yeah.
But that's like verisimilitude, right? That's something that feels like it's true because it's of a certain quality. Even something like Game of Thrones with nothing, Jon Snow, that kind of stuff still works.
They speak,
I think they speak. That's as loud as like the way that they're speaking in House of Yes. There's no doubt about it. They're speaking medieval times, like it's a period piece.
Yes, but period kind of buys you that also. When you appeal to class instead, I think you have to be even better and a more careful observer of humans, because when you say, well, rich people talk like this and it's different from how we talk, I mean, we've all met some rich people. We haven't met medieval wizards. So it's easier to go, well, I've met some rich people. They don't talk this abstractly.
That's fair.
Whereas a medieval wizard, I could be like, I guess that's how medieval wizards talk. I believe you.
Yeah, but there is a strong indication of what medieval wizards sound like based off other movies. So there is a zeitgeist that with it comes a definition.
But that's key. It's from other movies, not historical research. Like, I'm fully convinced in my head, right? I have, and I don't mean dialect like an accent with my voice, I mean writing wise, a way that I think cowboys talk, a way that I think samurais talk, a way that I think people talked in Elizabethan times, and a way that I think people talked in medieval times, and a way I think people wrote letters in Civil War times. And I bet if I did enough research, I would realize all of those conceptions are from films, none of which are directly from, or very few of which are from first-hand material. Yeah,
absolutely. I think that at best, it's specious. And that's still valid to me because it's what it is. That's why the power of the zeitgeist to me is that the fact that we do know and have the shared quality of speaking assigned to roles and things that we see as familiar, it feels like, okay, those two things make sense. Yeah. They speak. Yeah. Medieval times, everyone speaks in a British accent. Why? That's not even true. There's no way that's true. It's just not how it historically was.
I just love that we're all like, but it just feels right. But it just feels right to be true.
And it's entirely specious. Yet I would totally praise something that came along, like a story that came along that was, I know that like there's like Norsemen. Have you seen that? That's like a comedy. It's kind of a
Vikings.
Yeah, well, no, I mean that one's a comedy, so it works more. Okay. It plays with the language. It plays with like modern appeal, but like kind of like we did with the Stuff That Must Have Happened franchise at Cracked. That kind of thing. But like ultimately, I don't know.
Well, it works great for comedy because comedy is...
It works great for comedy.
Comedy is already asking you to not be emotional. If you connect emotionally and use empathy on most comedy, it is less funny.
True.
There are exceptions like, Nanette, that special. It was so revolutionary because it relied on empathy to make the jokes work. There is a lot of humor that relies on empathy. But by and large, classic setup punchline works better if you're thinking with your thinky think, not feeling with your love dub.
Feely feel.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that's fair.
And so I think comedy's arch language is more at home in a comedy. The mom really reminded me of Lucille Bluth, I got to be honest. I got a lot of vibes off this movie of other movies and things I like. Like I said, it reminded me of Knives Out a bit. It reminded me of Your Next a bit. And to me, those are points in its corner, given that it predates all of them pretty handily.
That's true. It's 97, which is pretty early for this kind of thing. It reminds me a lot of another thing we covered, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead. It's very Stoppard-esque.
Heathers. It's like if Rosencrantz and Guildenstern met Heathers, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. It's just that and I think you know what I mean by this. I don't like when I mention Charlie Kaufman, who's also great at what he does. I'm not going to decry
the
him.
Best.
Yeah, he's so smart, so good, and it's very clever. All of what he does, very clever. But here, I see stuff like him in this movie when it's like Freddie Prince Jr. saying like, "Can I see your knees? Tell me about the first time you had sex. I think I have a brain tumor." These 3 sentences are said within 4 seconds of each other. It's so hard to follow the dialogue in the movie. It's like word salad sometimes.
And what's weird is that Leslie goes along with it like, and that's your next line? That makes sense. And you're like, why does that make sense to you?
She's absolutely dumbfounding. Yeah. I don't understand her. She's outside the family, so it's weird that the writer would make her exactly like Anthony, who's also a child. Because she's talking about like her period as like the visitor, and she's like, no, I can't. She's been like when he's asking very predatory questions,
and they seem to make it. The implication is she has an overwhelming need to be polite and not make a scene. But I gotta say, I don't know anyone who can take that far. He sits
not that far.
Right. He sits on your bed. He gets closer and closer to you. He puts his hand on your leg and starts saying, "Tell me about when you lost your virginity." You wouldn't go, "Oh, to be polite, I'll pretend that's a surface level question and go, well, I lost my virginity on this date." You would go, "Why do you ask that? This is making me very uncomfortable." I mean, come on, anyone would. It's not, you don't have to be woke to think Leslie's crazy. Like, Leslie's
I think that's my
weird.
assumption. I mean, like, he's not overly aggressive, but he is also, his energy is real fucked up, and I could imagine that someone would be like, "Oh, I don't know, this guy's crazy, he could do anything, so I'm gonna play nice." But her performance doesn't suggest that either. She is entirely honest and genuine. She's not like, I don't see at least the director's not doing her any favors if Tori Spelling herself was trying to present that as like, oh no, she's feeling victimized and she is like trying to just get out of this situation because she doesn't know what can happen. And so she is just playing by his rules. Like, if that was a decision made by the actor, then, well, the director fucked up. But I don't even think Tori Spelling is doing that. I think she's just genuinely like,
I'm meeting them more than halfway. I felt tense during that scene because I was projecting that onto her. Like, I decided that's what was going on. But you're right that I'm doing some of the work for them, for sure. She doesn't play it that way.
She does not.
She plays it like she literally can't pick up the creepy vibe he's putting down. And you're like, do you not sense the room? Like, do you not sense the energy in the room?
Every scene like she has zero object permanence. It's bizarre. And he does too, to some extent.
Marty, yeah. Or do you mean Anthony?
Yeah. I mean Anthony. I mean, they're all kind of shades of something. But like, that's what bothered me about Tori Spelling. Not that as a character she's completely dumbfounding and that is against the movie. You can have a weird character, that's fine, but it's the fact that everyone's kind of cut from the same cloth, even though they are doing like a rich poor gap thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like she seems to be fine with the fact that everyone else is word salad. Like she tries to play along, but she just can't hang.
Yeah. And of course, I do think it's fair to knock it if you want to knock it for, like, if you're someone who struggles with borderline personality disorder, which I think is in the ballpark of what Parker Posey's going through, you don't, I'm sure you could knock the movie for being an uncharitable examination of mental illness, and it is.
Yeah, there's violence.
I don't know how to balance that because I've struggled with mental illness, and when it does cause you to have a propensity to harm yourself or others, then that is dark, and like it's valid to make fiction about darkness and challenges. But of course, there's a level where you're just like, look at the crazy person. Ooh. And this movie is, and there's a little bit of leering.
There's a little bit of that leering that is kind of inevitable with the, like you were mentioning, the twee directors as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like Wes Anderson kind of does it too. You know, he doesn't do full on mental awareness all the time.
He almost romanticizes mental illness.
Yeah. When you look at Margot, I think we're going to find that problematic in some time. Because I think that there's something about, like, it's the magic pixie dream girl, but it's also like...
You're right. It's the dark, gritty reboot of a manic pixie dream girl is what it is.
It's like, it's the fact that, like, society thought it was cute for a while for people to do things like self-harm and stuff because the world doesn't understand them, and that's tied intrinsically to the artist, and therefore romanticizable. Because he's taking advantage of that.
It's part of his identity, so he romanticizes it because we all romanticize our own facets.
But then at the end, he puts a good twist on it. You know, he's not an idiot. He's a lot of these directors will make it like, oh, it's a positive message. She got over it and stuff like that. And so the results are different. But it's like, but you also did play Elliott Smith over it again. An artist who killed himself, like because of depression. There's a lot going into this. Don't act like it's just something that you can put on a poster and it looks really pretty.
So I wonder what's the more genuine take. Like, it's interesting. You're right. The results are so different.
I'm sure.
This is the incestuous twins, and in the end, they decide to go for it, and it ends with one of them dead. So they did not tack the happy ending on. I'll be honest, I didn't think it was going to go that dark based on the tone throughout, which I think oftentimes dark comedies that go very dark at the end, I think that's one of the reasons it got like middling reviews and sort of overlooked by time. People don't like that experience. People don't like when there's a dark comedy and at the end it goes extra dark. I like it because I like to feel weird, but a lot of people don't like to feel weird.
It's funny because I thought, so we're like 5 minutes away from the ending of the movie, and in my head, I'm like, all right, so this is what they're going to do. She's going to shoot because she's going to plead for another. They're going to replicate the thing again for one last time. And she's either going to shoot him or she's not.
Or she's going to shoot herself, I thought.
Oh, okay. I didn't even think of that contingency.
I actually think that would be a very reasonable thing from her fractured point of view because he refuses to stay with her and she doesn't want to live without him.
I could say, because I haven't considered it fully, but like as soon as you said it, I was like, that's immediately something I should have considered.
Yeah.
But I thought the movie was going one of two ways, and both of them felt unsatisfactory to me. And the ending that happened felt unsatisfactory.
Well, I think because Marty also becomes lost in the machinations of the family, so you have no. It's a weirdly structured, broken movie, so intentionally so. Like, he doesn't change or his change is from somewhat recovered to backsliding. Like, his change is negative.
Yeah, who really does change?
I guess he is the one that changes. It's just a tragedy, not a comedy, structurally.
Well, sure. Yeah, it's a black comedy, so yeah. Yeah, so no one's... I mean, his change is that he allows something, which is just like not very not utilizing a conflict very well for a story. I mean, I get the plainness of it because there's many plays that are like, what's the conflict? Well, just kind of the decision to go through with something or not to go through something is most answers.
Yeah.
To not go through something and let something passively wash over you is an example of a story. It's just not very engaging for film.
Right. Have you ever read The Children's Hour?
No.
Reminded me
I've
of
heard
this.
that
I just
name.
think, plays play a lot more on the conceptuality of it all because they have to, right? Because they can't control your eye. So you're supposed to be ruminating on how tense and how weird you feel, and rather than, you get the difference between plays and movies. But I think it's always valid, especially for a lover of film and a director of film, to say, I wish they had done more to adapt this into a film than just film the play. I think that's a valid critique. I had that critique of Fences. Great play. The movie was very competently done, but there was no reason to make it it didn't need to be a movie. Intrinsically, they didn't do anything that elevated it above needing to be a play.
I admire... Well, you going to have more to say there?
No. Just breathing.
I admire the stylistic approach and the choice of Jackie O as a kind of tortured figure, because very popular. Like, we all know all the competing aspects of what makes Jackie O Jackie O. Mm-hmm. I was kind of confused about the choice of using Jackie O as like kind of the vehicle for Parker Posey's character in this, because what does it offer? What is the unique things what elements of Jackie O? I know she's tied to death. I know she's tied to elegance. I know that, there's a lot
that's the extent
going on.
Or the only two I pulled was rich, perfect family, but tragedy stalks them and they're ultimately doomed. So that's what Parker Posey is. But she wasn't the
cause of this tragedy. She was a bystander.
That's actually
tragedy.
What I think is the weakest thing in the movie, is that when they reenact it, she plays Oswald, or whoever you think shot JFK. She plays the shooter, and she plays Jackie O. Why is she the shooter? I never understood why she inhabits the role of the shooter in her fantasy.
In her fantasy, she's a murderer too. Maybe she doesn't think about that, but clearly it's the both. Otherwise, they can just act like they're
dude, I mean, he acts like he's the normal one, but it's just as weird to get off on pretending to be Kennedy and get shot in the head. Why does he get off on that? Right, it's just as aberrant or unusual.
I mean, honestly, they just get off on each other.
That's just like their pantomime before they're allowed to have sex, essentially. Yeah.
I love that the mother says, she says it like it's an old saying, and like it's not at all like an old saying. She's like what is it they say, they're each other's forever, because like when they came out of the womb, she was grabbing his penis.
Yeah, when they were born, her hand was on his penis. It's in a medical journal somewhere.
Yeah, no one says that.
Look it up.
No one says. Look it up. Yeah, when twins do that, that means they're meant to be together.
That means they're meant to get it on. It's too late. May as well sing it. So let me ask you this, because you excitedly showed me Festin, and you said you don't really enjoy...
the Celebration, you mean?
The Celebration, Festin is the title in whatever language it is in.
By Thomas Vinterberg.
Austrian? German? Anyway, Celebration. The Celebration is the English translation, but movie about a kind of a similar vibe. No comedy whatsoever, though. Family gets together, revelations are had, it ruins the family. You showed me that in college, and it always stuck with me because I love fucked up, dark family drama movies.
Oh,
you said they don't float your boat. How can you like Festin? It's the darkest, most fucked up one I'm aware of.
I think that one because it feels so real. I also like Magnolia,
sure.
Dysfunctional characters don't bother me. It's that you got to do it right. And I think that Vinterberg knows what dysfunction is.
Ooh, does he ever?
I think he knows. There's something about to take a line from a less impressive film, like the barbaric yelp of like the main character of Celebration. Mm-hmm. using his toast to essentially antagonize the person that he's toasting in such a visceral, cutting way is more real to me of like something that is in the capacity of something. Like that's how families will like air out their dirty laundry than the things that we see in Wes Anderson's or like The House of Yes, where it's like, it's just a 1,000 stabs every day.
Yeah, the mom's just like, Pennsylvania, isn't that a state people just fly over to get other places? Shit like that.
Or like, and I love that. So I need a film that kind of does both. Sure. Show me that. Show me the dysfunction, the day-to-day dysfunction. But also like in Punch Drunk Love, show me where he absolutely just punches the glass door, you know? Like I need to see that like, nope, stop. This is now happening. I don't know what it is about dysfunction. Dysfunction needs to break in order for me to have catharsis. And by break, I mean that someone has to, like, I can't just continuously be seeing dysfunction as dysfunction and just like, you want the story to
be about the ultimate end of the cycle, not just the continuum of what
otherwise
it is. Yeah.
That's what makes me uncomfortable. If it just leaves it out there.
I mean, Marty's like, dead.
Nope,
the cycle's broken.
It's too real. It's too real. I need it to break. Because I think that, so maybe that's it. And like I said, there's probably a psychological reason for that, and I should see a therapist, but whatever.
But Marty, yes, you should. But Marty is dead at the end. That the cycle is broken. Wouldn't you argue this was the final iteration for the House of Yes?
Yes, but we're not seeing it from a perspective of Parker Posey. You're just seeing her as she is a kin of nature. She is just like the man on the grassy knoll. She's Oswald, like you said. She is a force of nature that essentially acts upon the movie at her whim. We don't witness her pushing back against nature like someone like Adam Sandler in Punch Drunk Love. Because nature is not allowing him to be himself any number of things.
We're not with her in the storm. She is the storm.
She is the storm.
You're right. Yeah. And that's I think what I was picking up on when I said it doesn't treat mental illness particularly empathetically, because she is just the threat. She's just crazy.
She is just a threat.
Yeah. So yeah, about time to wrap up, but I know you take better notes than me. Did you have any final thoughts?
No, I think the only thing that I wanted to mention is like it was more important to me that I mentioned this when I thought you were going to not like the movie as well, but I'm glad you liked it.
I did.
This was bought for $2 million by Aaron Spelling of the Spelling Company.
Sure.
AKA Tori Spelling's dad.
Makes sense.
So this was a vehicle for Tori Spelling, and she won a Razzie for this.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, that is surprising because it is not a good vehicle for anyone. Leslie is the worst part by far.
But also take a moment and think about probably Tori Spelling was the one who wanted to make this, and he was probably like, yeah, okay. Like she was probably on board and found it and saw it. Maybe not. I'm extrapolating a lot, but the Spelling family has a lot. Like if you just do a little bit of research into it, and I'm kind of obsessed with it now. It started with watching in this movie, just researching that family. It's wild, man.
You can see why this spoke to her.
I can see why this spoke to someone.
Interesting.
One of the two.
Yeah.
And the implications of if that was true are kind of like, oof, rough.
Yeah.
like there's something there. There's something
for sure. I think, well, they were lucky to get Parker Posey in that role. I do think she elevates the movie.
She kills it. And Freddie Prince Jr., both Tori Spelling and Freddie Prince Jr. they don't have a lot to work with. So like, I can't say that they're just the worst actors here. It's just hard to play that role because they're basically playing dummies.
Leslie's
like
role
children.
Sucks. Yeah.
Yeah,
it's a bad
role. It just really sucks. So I'm not going to put that all on her, like at her feet.
Yeah. So
that's it.
And I just say if you do like dysfunctional, intimate family portraits like Wrist Cutters or Running with Scissors or Tannenbaum's vibes, check it out. House of Yes, overlooked.
House of Yes.
Yeah. Thanks
again, Zach and Vera. Yeah,
Zach and Vera. Yeah. Took me
Folds,
right back to college days. I'm watching Festin. Yeah. I'm listening to Zach and Sarah.
I'm listening to Zach and Sarah.
Jerking off
we're at our old
than
place.
I do now. Yeah.
We're at our old place, Via Real Czar in San Diego. Oh, yeah.
Eating California burritos from Roberto's number 2, Danger Burritos.
Experimenting with weed and cameras. There we are.
That's right.
A sode.
Eating rabbit. Brian would go to fucking Bristol
Brian
Farms
would go
and
get rabbit
cook up a rabbit.
We all make fun of him because Bristol Farms is for like rich people, and he's like, yeah, but you can't get rabbit anywhere else. I'm like, why the fuck do you want to eat rabbit?
Why do you want to eat rabbit? He's like, taste it.
He's like, I don't know, man. Have you eaten rabbit?
It's fine. Tastes like chicken. It's fine.
Yeah. I have that experience under my I got that now. That's mine.
Yeah.
You don't have that. I was like, I'll share some of your rabbit just so I know what rabbit tastes like.
Man, did I ever tell you one time Dan O'Brien and I were out schmoozing with a producer, as you do, and it led nowhere as it usually does. But at the lunch, Dan ordered rarebit because he wanted to try rabbit. And I also thought, I made the same assumption, but rarebit is just like a cheese dip or something. I don't know exactly what it is, but it has nothing to do with rabbit. He just got a random plate of like a goop.
And he's just like, what is this? He didn't say anything, or did he say something
No, of course, he leaned into it. He was like, what, did they blend the rabbit? Or I thought this was rabbit. He outed himself, of course.
Good. That's, yeah.
He knows how to roll with the punches.
Yeah, you gotta with that. When you make an offer like that, when you go with the rarebit, you're gonna be like, I'm in this now.
Yeah.
People are looking about how this is gonna resolve. Yeah, I don't even know what rarebit is. I didn't know that.
Let's look it up. To do with it's Welsh. I know that. That'll be our last bit of information. Don't say we never taught you nothing. Rarebit. Welsh rarebit. It's a savory sauce of melted cheese and various other ingredients served hot, poured over slices of toasted bread. It's just cheesy bread.
It's just cheese bread.
It's cheese bread. And he was expecting
like fondue.
He was expecting a cooked rabbit. That's just funny to me.
Is it because rarebit sounds like rabbit?
Why do they call it rarebit? The word rarebit is a corruption of the word rabbit, Welsh rabbit, being first recorded in 1725, and the variant Welsh rarebit being first recorded in 1785 by Francis Gross. According to the Oxford English Dictionary, Welsh rarebit is an etymologizing alteration. The word rarebit has no other usage in any language other than in the phrase Welsh rarebit.
Wow.
All right. It doesn't explain why they call cheese on toast rabbit, but okay.
Well, now I want some rarebit.
It's delicious. It's like a beer cheese.
It looks good
on toast. Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds good. All right.
Let's do it. Let's go make some rarebit.
All right, buddy. I'll be over in 5. All right.
I'll breathe in your mouth soon, my friend.
Yes.
Everyone, don't breathe in each other's mouths. Stay safe. Patronize us if you're so moved. We'd love to keep doing this even more. And thank you to Zach again for the pick.
Yeah. Thanks.
We love you.
Love you.
This has been a Small Beans endeavor. We're a bunch of pals who make podcasts, sketches, music, web series, and movies. The beans always have new ideas percolating, so make sure to check us out at patreon.com/smallbeans. That's patreon.com/smallbeans, where you can browse all of our current and past content, see what we've got planned in the future, and learn how your support can help the small beans grow into huge, giant monster beans. If you enjoyed this content module, please like, rate, subscribe, or tell a friend about us. We love you.